Okay, I'm going to give this a try. It's been a long time. Hello, this is Harry Reasoner. And tonight I have a few apologies to make. I haven't been on YouTube for a long time. I actually logged on a few days ago, just out of the blue. I'm not really sure why I did. Maybe I was feeling a bit nostalgic or something. Now, I'm not going to apologize for not posting anything for a long time. But I am going to apologize to the people who used to mean a great deal to me here. I've neglected a number of you who I actually came to think of as really quite good friends, people that I respected and admired a great deal. And it's been a long time, and I extend an apology without naming you to those people. Like I said it a few days ago, I did turn things on, and I logged on. I hadn't logged on for a long time. And I wanted to make a video, and so I turned on the camera and just started talking, and realized after a while that it was just a bunch of trite bullshit, to tell you the truth, that didn't have any purpose or meaning, really. And this may not, it probably doesn't yet. So I thought about it for a few days, and then it occurred to me I have a sort of a free evening this evening. I'm alone tonight, which is a rare thing for me, which is nice that it's rare. And I've been thinking about something that probably causes me to say that probably will cause me to say a few more apologies. Now recently, I was thinking about stuff, and which probably prompted me to go back onto YouTube. And I guess I've been sort of sheltering myself from all the nonsense and horse shit of religion, and it kind of occurred to me that I might get a kick out of watching some old videos, and I did. And I realized that there's still, of course, a strong amount of debating going on and arguing, and I kind of miss it. So I thought for a couple of days about maybe what I could talk about along those lines, and it occurred to me that there is something. I need to take a break already. I'll be back in a couple of minutes. A few weeks ago, I was in Paris, France. I include the word France there because there's a town called Paris not too far from here, Paris, Ontario. I was in Paris, France, and I won't tell you why because it's not relevant to the story. But it is perhaps a subject that there could be a video in. I don't know, somewhere down the line. I was there for 6 or 7 days. I can't remember. And one afternoon I was coming back. I had been to the Louvre. The Mona Lisa is a huge disappointment, by the way. Still pretty cool, but kind of a bucket list sort of thing, but actually nowhere near as impressive as one would think. But then again, I'm not a student of art. Anyway, I was coming back to where I was staying, and I was in the quite extensive subway that Paris has. And I came upon a group of musicians. It was a string ensemble. There were maybe 15 of them. They were playing Christmas music, and it was really quite nice. The acoustics, you wouldn't think so underground, but it was really quite nice. And let's face it, there's been an incredible pile of very beautiful music written in the name of our Lord. It's true. Whatever. They were selling CDs, and I reached into my pocket, and in my wallet I had a €50 note, which is the equivalent of about $75 Canadian, and I had a pocket of change that was about €5 or €6. And I felt a little bit bad, as I always do with gifted buskers anyway, not giving anything after enjoying, a bit of the performance. But a natural break sort of came in it, and I walked away. I was walking along, and it was during, the end of the workday sort of rush. And there were a lot of people, and I rounded a corner. It's a bit of a maze, the metro there. And I'm not a city person, I have to admit. I'm really not. And I walked past a very small woman. She was 4.5 feet tall, probably, with a hijab on, and she had a baby. And I realized a second or two after I'd passed her that she was a Syrian refugee and was panhandling in effect. She wasn't standing there, plaintively crying out with her hand stuck out or anything. She was just very humbly standing there with her eyes cast down. And in a split second, I turned and sort of bucked the crowd to make my way back to her. And apology number 2, is it? I didn't give her the €50 note. But I did dig into my pocket, and I gave her all of my coins. And I gathered them into my hand and reached out, and it was only then that she put her hand out. And I took her hand in both of mine, and I squeezed. And I have to tell you, and I don't want to be corny about it, I have spent some time in some big cities. I'm not a city person. I like the excitement of a city when I get there, and I'm relieved to get out of it, even if I'm leaving it half an hour later. I've come across many panhandlers over the years, some aggressive and obnoxious, some humble, but none as humble as her or as appreciative. I'll never forget the look in her eyes, and I wish that I could adequately describe that look to you. And I walked away very much shaken isn't the right word, but pensive maybe be the word. And I did wonder the rest of that evening and night about her and about what separates she and I. The amount of money that I gave to her was, in terms of the Western world, at least most of it, or a lot of it, a pittance. It was the equivalent of what I had spent on coffee that morning, and it was a tiny fraction of what I spent, admittedly, on beer and wine that evening. And a tiny fraction of what I'd spent on that trip. But to her, it appeared to have made a big difference. The look on her face was one of very real gratitude that I hadn't witnessed before. I'm not a naive little boy. I really am not. It was sincere, and it was very touching. And I wish I had given her the 50. I've thought about that woman and her situation and what it must be like for her as much as I'm able since then. And it wasn't long after that I remembered Easter, no less, last Easter, when I traveled to, not Eastern Ontario, but east of Toronto, to the home of my brother's fiancée. She had a bunch of boys in an earlier life, I guess you'd say, who are now, how do I put this charitably? Fucking ignorant rednecks. And one of them was going on and on at length about the Syrians. I didn't witness, which is probably a good thing in a way, but I wish I had all the same. He went on and on about the cowardly Syrians, how they should be staying and fighting in their country, and God damn them for coming over here. What a bunch of cowards, and they're basically child abusers because they risk the lives of their children to come over here, and they should be staying there and fighting for their country, and fuck, we don't want them. And I wish very much that I had overheard that. But I know it's true that even if I had, in the interests of family harmony and not wanting to rock the boat, I don't know if I would have spoken up. But I know his last name, and I won't mention it, but it's a Scottish name. And he's white. He's not Aboriginal. And I wish I could go back in time and say to him, well, tell me, where did your family come from, your ancestors? I'm guessing some European country because of the color of your skin. Where'd you come from? And I know the story, Scottish, Irish, as am I. And I said, oh, really? I would have. At least I hope I would have. I said, so, let's see, your ancestors escaped a homeland that was a shitty place to be. Corruption and unfair laws and persecution by the English. And they chose not to stay and fight. But they came here instead, risking the lives of their children, and many of them lost their children on the way. Many of them died themselves, and they risked life and limb to get here. And they are welcomed into this great country, given full rights as citizens, given free land, sometimes startup capital, given the protection of the law, and every right that this land could provide to them. And somehow they were heroic. We romanticized them. What tough, strong people they were. And I wish I could have reminded him of all of this and then said, but it's completely different now with the Syrians, isn't it? It's a completely different situation. They're brown. They're brown. It's shit like this that really sticks in my craw. And for the longest time, I thought I could just ignore it and just try and live a good life. And maybe correct someone here and there. Maybe correct my own thinking when I discover that I was wrong. But I don't think that's enough anymore. And I'd kind of like to get back into the fray. I'm not saying that I will, but I miss it. And I think the world needs people to speak up all over, now more than any time in history. Anyway, this is Harry Reisner. I'm musing on a snowy, lone night. And I miss you. Well, most of you. This is Harry Reisner. Good night.